Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I am bringing you guys an update to my Ojama slash Melfy deck profile. So this is a really awesome deck that I've always loved playing. I am a big fan of Ojamas from the anime, and it's really great that we've gotten new support all together with beasts and whatnot with Melfys, and now we have the new Ojama Pink, which just came out in Blazing Vortex, which really helps with the mechanism of locking your opponent out of their main monster zones, as well as, just picking through the deck, getting an extra discard off, and drawing a card, which is really, really nice. So, without any further ado, let's get on with the deck profile. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already for more Ojama and Melfy deck profiles and just any other kind of fun deck profiles that you guys want to get your eyes on. So, unfortunately, Ojama Pink, we are only playing it as a 2 of. It's actually a really good card that you can continuously bring back to your field over and over again through certain cards like your field spell and whatnot, and it's super easy to search it out of the deck. So I found it only really necessary to play at 2 of, but basically with this card, when this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, both players draw and then discard one card, and then if you discard an Ojama off of this effect, then you get to target one of your opponent's main monster zones and make it so that your opponent cannot use it until the end of the next turn, which is pretty cool. It's unfortunate that it only lasts for the next turn. I wish it could maybe last for 2 or 3 turns, but that would maybe get a little bit broken. And if this wasn't a hard once per turn, that would probably be broken. So it is a hard once per turn on that effect. There have been times where I've wanted to use this multiple times in a turn, and it's really unfortunate that you can't. But I think that with the possibility of looping this, they had to put a hard once per turn on it. So for that reason, we're just playing it as a 2 of. Then for the 3s, we are going to be playing 3 copies of the Ojama Red. This card is just great to see in your opening hand. That's why we want to play it at 3. So when this card is normal summoned, you get to special summon any number of Ojamas into attack position from your hand, which is really great just because the Ojamas don't really have that much swarming capabilities. So this is just a really great card to make sure that you can actually get a little bit of board presence and then go ahead into your Link and XZ or Fusion summons, whatever you need to get going. Then we're going to go on into our 2 copies of Ojama Blue. Just like Ojama Pink, he's really easy to keep getting back onto the field, so you only need to play it as a 2 of. But when this card gets destroyed by a battle then and sent to the graveyard, then you can add 2 Ojama cards from your deck to your hand. He's really, really crucial also for the deck just because getting that extra draw is getting specific Ojama cards to your hand is super duper nice. There's even times where I'll crash this in battle, just like suicide into something, take a whole bunch of damage, but then you get to get those cards that are really necessary for your combo to take off. So it actually is worth it a lot of the time. Then we're just going to get on into the vanillas. We're going to go into my favorite of the vanillas, Ojama Green. I just really, really love him. Then 3 copies of Ojama Yellow. Pretty standard. Some people play him at 2s, but just for the searchability of Oja Magic, I believe that you need to play these at 3. In my opinion, that's just my strict opinion that you have to be playing these cards each at 3 because there's nothing worse than drawing. If you only play them at 2 and then you draw 2 Ojama Blacks in your opening hand, then that means that all of your Oja Magics in your deck in your hand are completely dead. So you need to be playing them at 3 just to make sure that that does not happen. Then we're going to go on into our 3 copies of Melfy Puppy, just running a very small and tight Melfy engine in here because with this card, when your opponent normal summons or when your opponent summons or they declare an attack on Melfy Puppy, then you can bounce it to the hand and then special summon a beast from the deck. And then he also special summons himself during your end phase of your turn. So he's super duper nice just for special summoning out whoever you need to. There's times with Puppy that you can special summon out the Ojama Blue. Then you can, in the middle of the battle phase, that way you can make sure that his effect can go off. Or you can just search out the one of the 2 copies of Melfy Caddy. because with Caddy, when this card bounces to the hand, then you get to add a beast monster from your deck to your hand. So it's really nice for picking up the Ojama Red. That way you know that on your following turn, you can do a super duper special summon of all of the Ojamas in your hand. So overall, this Melfy engine just really helps you to tutor out whatever you need out of the deck. I really, really like it. I've played with a pure variant of Ojamas, and really just running these 5 Melfys really, really helps out the strategy. So that's why I have them in here. Then we're going to go on into our 3 copies of Rescue Cat. This card is just another great normal summon. If you don't see your Ojama Red, you need to be playing Rescue Cat for that reason. So this card is basically just an automatic XZ summon into your Ronin Raccoon, which can summon out a Raccoon token, which is pretty helpful, you know, just to power over your opponent's big stuff. There's other applications, but that's generally what I see, like in an emergency, just going into your XZ summon, and we'll get into that stuff a little bit later into the extra deck. The 1 copy of Armed Dragon level 3, this card sort of, we'll get to the explanation for that a little bit later for those of you who don't understand. And then 1 copy of Watch Cat. This is another really great summon target off of your Melfy dog, or your puppy, sorry. But with this card, when this card gets special summoned, if it's in the graveyard during the end phase, you can then add 1 continuous spell and I believe set it to your field. So for that reason, we are playing some continuous spells in the deck. So we are going to move on to the spells then with that. So for our, basically our main continuous spell, we're playing 3 copies of Ground Collapse. This is the variant of Ojamas with like locking your opponent out of the monster zones. That's, you know, we're obviously playing the Ojama Pink. So Ojama Pink helps us to lock our opponent out of some zones. And then with the Ground Collapse, you can also lock your opponent out of 2 more zones. I will give you guys some alternatives if you don't want to play this. If you're just playing a pure like Ojama variant without like trying to lock your opponent out of the extra monster zones, if you're just trying to play like an Ojama OTK version and you want to get rid of all of this stuff, I will definitely give you guys alternatives, but then we're going to go on into our 3 copies of Oja Magic. So with this card, when this card gets discarded or, you know, just sent from the hand or your field to the graveyard, then you get to add 1 of all 3 of the vanilla Ojamas, which is really, really amazing. It's probably like the best card in the deck just because it helps you to like +2 in card advantage. Then we're going on into 3 copies of Polymerization. Now, the reason why I have these 3 cards all flushed out is because if you are able to draw all 3 of these cards in your opening hand, along with a discard for your Oja Magic, then that means that you lock your opponent out of all 5 monster zones. So then we're also playing the 1 copy of the Fusion Recycling Plant. So what Fusion Recycling Plant does is that you can, once per turn, discard a card from your hand and then add a Polymerization from your deck to your hand. So the really amazing thing with this is that actually this 3-card combo right here means that you lock your opponent out of all 5 zones. So the reason for that is you would activate your Fusion Recycling Plant, discard your Oja Magic, which would add all 3 of your Ojamas from your deck to your hand. So you'll get all 3 of those guys. Polymerization will also get added to your hand. Then activate the Polymerization to fuse these 3 and then go into your Ojama King. Ojama King then locks your opponent out of 3 of the monster zones, and then you then activate Ground Collapse and then lock your opponent out of their last 2 main monster zones. And then they have nothing, no zones to actually normal summon anything, which in general just kind of means that they'll lose. It doesn't mean that you're going to win, but you know, as long as your opponent has powerful spells and traps in the deck, they can probably get around it. But it is just sort of the gimmick of the deck, so I just wanted to highlight that for you guys, that is just the general 3-card combo. Then going on into more of the Ojama cards, another really great discard card for the deck is Oja Match. So with this card, you send 1 Ojama card from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, and then you can get an Ojama as well as your Armed Dragon card. So that's the reason why we're playing the Armed Dragon level 3 wherever he's hiding. Yes, so Armed Dragon level 3 along with any Ojama to search out of the deck. Generally, I go for the Ojama Red. So then that means that also with this card, after you get your searching done, then you can normal summon one of the monsters. So then you can normal summon your Ojama Red and then special summon any of the Ojamas that are in your hand. So it's just really, really nice. Also, this card can pull the Ojama or the Armed Dragon out of the graveyard. So if you do end up drawing the Armed Dragon level 3, it's not the end of the world. He's, you can still pull him out of the graveyard, which is really cool. And it also means that you can always use each of these, like, even if this is sitting in the graveyard, you can always use the next one. So it's really, really cool. Then we'll go on into 3 copies of Ojama Country. This is your main field spell for the deck. 3 copies of Obedience Schooled because we're playing a beast deck, so pretty standard there. Then we're going on into 3 copies of Tri-White. This is maybe a spot where you could take this down to 2, but this is a larger main deck than most people are used to. This is a 50-card main deck. So the reason for playing 3 Tri-Whites is just because there are a lot of cards in the main deck, and I play so many in the main deck, that way you're just not going to draw into the vanillas quite as much. Because otherwise they do get pretty bricky if you just draw a whole bunch of them. There's obviously 9 in the main deck. So the reason for Tri-White is because with this card, you get to special summon 3 normal monsters from your graveyard. So with that, you want to make sure that your graveyard is well set up. So you don't generally want to see this on your first turn, but you do definitely want to see it once per duel. So that's why I like playing it at 3. Then for our last 2 cards, we just have 1 copy of Terraforming and 1 copy of Melfy Hide and Seek. This is searchable through a card in our extra deck and everything. It protects our beasts from getting destroyed by card effects. And then also it allows us to basically Pot of Avarice our graveyard, shuffle back 3 beast monsters from our graveyard, and then draw 1 card. So it is really, really nice just to sort of shuffle back some of our cards like the Ojama Blue, Ojama Pink, along with our Watch Cat, and really any of the cards that you just want to get out of the graveyard and back into the main deck, especially if your Watch Cat's effect didn't go off the first time. So that's going to do it for the main deck. Again, this is a 50-card main deck. And lastly, like I mentioned, if you don't want to play the the Monster Zone Lockout, these are going to be your 8 cards in the deck that basically do that. So if you want to get rid of like all of the Polymerization along with the Fusion Recycling Plant, and you're not looking to play any of the fusions, that's what you're going to want to take out, along with the Ground Collapse, and then you really don't need the Watch Cat anymore either. So that's just sort of what I would take out if you don't want to play those. And so then just for other alternative options, you could easily slip in 3 copies of Unexpected Die along with a Melfy Rabby, which just helps you to extend some of your plays. Obviously, you have, for the Unexpected Die, you have plenty of normal monsters to special summon off of that. If you're looking to go for really big extra deck plays in the deck and you're not looking to exactly do the Monster Zone Shutout, and then just some of the Ojama cards that are pretty good would be Ojama Delta Hurricane and Ojama Pajama. There just wasn't really enough room to put them into the main deck. So those would just be some pretty good alternatives, and then just whatever else you're feeling. Again, we're already above a 40-card build, so you can really sort of use your own discretion on what you want to add or take out. But anyways, let's get on into the extra deck. So for the extra, we are playing the 1 copy of Ojama King and then 2 copies of Ojama Knight. So Knight can lock your opponent out of 2 monster zones, while Ojama King can lock your opponent out of 3. So if you can get both of these onto the field in your opening turn, which is still pretty possible, then you can lock your opponent out of everything. Or again, like I said, if you can get Ojama King along with your Ground Collapse on your first turn, then that means that you're going to lock your opponent out of all of their zones, which is really, really amazing. Or if you can at least just extend it into Knight, 1 Ground Collapse, and then get your Ojama Pink off, then your opponent has none. Or again, if you can just do these 2 here, your opponent is out of 4 zones, and then they basically only have 1 extra monster zone and then their main monster zone. So like for Dragon Link players, it's really hard for them to extend. So this is a bit of a joke or like meme deck, but it is still just really fun to play, and it can make some surprisingly good plays too. So then we're going to go on into 3 copies of So Cute Boss. So with the So Cute Boss, I would recommend keeping it at 3 copies in the main deck, or in the extra deck, sorry. I believe that it is best that way, or at least playing it as as a 2 of, because the effects do stack depending on how many you have on board. So with So Cute Boss, you can target one monster your opponent controls with attack that is less than the combined attack of all ghost tricks that you control, and then you can destroy it and then make it so that your opponent cannot use that monster zone. So it's really amazing that this can even lock your opponent out of the extra monster zone. So basically, if you put the So Cute Boss or something else in the extra monster zone and then target your opponent's monster also in the extra monster zone, then that means that they're locked out of their extra monster zone. And then you could then use your other So Cute Boss to take out another monster in the main zones. So I really like that. If you're able to get all three on board, then you can destroy three monsters that have, what would 14 times 3 be? That would be 4,200. So you can destroy three monsters that have less than 4,200 attack, which should encompass basically everything on your opponent's field. And then you can lock your opponent out of up to 3 zones. So, I mean, with these guys, even just doing a little bit of spot removal, it's really, really nuts. Also, your Ojama Country Field spell, changes around the attack and defensive monsters. So your So Cute Boss will stay at 1,200 attack, and then all of your opponent's monsters will kind of get flip-flopped, which is really cool. Then going on, we have our 2 copies of the Ronin Raccoon. I absolutely love this card. This card's so good. And I would say that even almost more than Access Code Talker, this card has stolen me games, because all it requires is 2 of your monsters. So then you detach material, and then you make a token that has an equal attack equal to the monster on the field with the highest attack. And there's even been times in testing where I've gotten 2 copies of this card out, along with an Ojama, the Ojama Emperor and Ojama King, which each have 3,000 attack when your Ojama Country is out. And then the Ronin Raccoon combines the attack, and then the token keeps the attack to 3,000, and then you basically end up with 4 monsters on board with 3,000 attack, which is absolutely insane that this deck can even come up with that kind of power level. So I think it's really, really cool to be playing this, and I like playing it at 2. That way, if you have to crash into one of your opponent's monsters, then you at least have a second token on board, which is as big as what the original boss monster was. So you crash into the first one, and then you have an open field to attack. Then we have the 1 copy of Melfy of the Forest. Works really great with your Melfy engine, and then also can search your continuous spell, which I really, really like. The 1 copy of Link Spider, just to extend your plays. 1 copy of Mrs. Radiant. Mrs. Radiant is really, really important for your Ronin Raccoon, because when you get your token out, it is going to have equal attack to the highest boss monster. So like I was talking about how you can sometimes crash into your opponent, well, Mrs. Radiant allows you to sort of get around that, because it will increase the token's attack by 500 attack. As long as your opponent doesn't have an earth monster, then you won't have any kind of problems. Then we'll have the 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix and 1 Nightmare Unicorn. These are just 2 cards that are really essential to the deck, because they're really good for discarding stuff. Then 1 copy of Ojama Emperor, because he's sort of like the boss monster of the deck. And then 1 copy of Access Code Talker, because he's really, really great for helping to close out games. But anyways, guys, that is going to do it for my Ojama deck profile. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I've loved playing around with this deck, and I've been waiting for Ojama Pink to come out into the TCG for a long time, so I'm really glad that we finally have it. It is a great extender, to sort of push through your deck to find the really important cards. So I've really, really been loving it. I'll hopefully be getting out a test video, where I'm sort of playing around with this deck online. And I'm also trying to establish a Twitch. That way you guys can actually watch me stream and play with these kinds of decks. So if you guys want to check me out on Twitch, I believe I have it up right now. You guys can just check for Common Collector. Let me know if you find me, and add yourselves. That way you guys can watch me stream once I finally start doing it. So thank you guys so much for joining. Again, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.